back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, we're going to continue our tour of the draft, AFC South style, by talking about the Tennessee Titans with the three-point conversions, Courtlandt Griffin. We're going to get into the Titans free agency as well. We're not just going to talk about the draft, but we're going to get to that just a little bit later in the show. But up first, like we always do, we're going to start the show off with the Get It Off Your Chest segment. And boy, oh boy, do I got something to get off my chest and off my mind and off my heart. And that would be that Aaron Rodgers is finally gone from the Green Bay Packers. Thank the Lord, because Lord have mercy, we have heard about him all season, about him going somewhere, and then he doesn't, and then the 49ers come into it, and then other teams come into it, but he is finally gone from the Green Bay Packers. Now, just to give you a little bit of the dynamics of what happened, the Packers received the number 13 pick in this year's draft, a second-round pick, number 42 in this year's draft, and they also received a sixth-round pick in this year's draft, number 207, as well as they receive a second-round conditional pick, but it returns into a first if Aaron Rodgers plays 65% of the games next year. So essentially, the Packers got the two firsts they wanted if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy and plays. For the Jets, they switched to the 15th pick in this year's draft. They get the fifth-round pick in this year's draft, and, of course, they get Aaron Rodgers. Now, plenty are talking about who won, who did this, and who did that. But honestly, it's kind of a win for both teams if you look at it. The Packers, they want to get those, like I mentioned, the first-round draft picks, two of those. They got one and a conditional potential one. Basically, if he plays 65% of the games, they get another first-round pick. So they get those two first-round picks. Let's just say he plays 65% of the games. They get the two first-round picks they wanted. They also get a good look at Jordan Love. Now, for those that don't remember, 2020, Jordan Love was drafted by the Green Bay Packers in the first round to be the eventual successor to Aaron Rodgers. Now, if this doesn't sound familiar to you, let me break it down a little bit. Before Aaron Rodgers started as a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, he was a backup to Brett Favre, and he also was a first-round draft pick for the Green Bay Packers, and he sat 3 years. You know how many years Jordan Love sat? 3 years. And then we saw Aaron Rodgers, and he came out 28 touchdowns, 13 interceptions in his first year. Now, I'm not saying that Jordan Love is going to set the world on fire when he first steps in there at quarterback. However, this is a perfectly painted picture of the last time that the Green Bay Packers started a quarterback that people were not sure about. And, he went on to, win a Super Bowl MVP and multiple All-Pro and, MVP seasons as well, just to kind of throw that in there. So it'll be interesting to see how Jordan Love is able to grow and able to, do his thing as the starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. Also, here's another caveat to this. If it does not work out, then Green Bay more than likely has a first-round draft pick to go along with their other first-round draft pick next year. You see what I'm seeing here? They could trade up for one of the top quarterbacks in the 2024 draft if it doesn't work out. So win-win for the Green Bay Packers. On the flip side of that, you know how many times we said if they only had a quarterback for the New York Jets? We said that a lot last year. Now we can finally say they actually have a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. Now, coming along with Aaron Rodgers, there's going to be a little baggage. There's going to be the Snyder marks, the demonstrative behavior on the field, but he is a great quarterback, albeit, I will say he's great in the regular season. He's not always great in the postseason. But I digress. Looking at the weapons that he has, you have a Corey Davis on one side, which I wasn't sure if he was going to still be there or not. You still never know. They may cut him post June 1st or not. We'll see. You have Alan Lazard, who he is very familiar with from his Green Bay days. You have, let me look here. You have McCole Hardman. Yep, McCole Hardman. They brought over from the Kansas City Chiefs, a slot guy, a guy that you can get the ball to in multiple ways. And, of course, like you mentioned, they do have Garrett Wilson, who is one of the best young receivers in the NFL. Look at this team. Look at the weapons. Look at how explosive they could be with Aaron Rodgers. Now, if that defense shows up like they did last year, this team could be a viable option to make it to the playoffs. Dare I say, make it deep in the playoffs. Yeah, the New York Jets and making it deep in the playoffs. I know that doesn't go together a lot. It could potentially happen with the weapons that they have, the defense they have. And I'm rooting for Coach Salah, to actually do well and do his thing as coach of the New York Jets. But in the end, it's a win-win for both teams, and they both get what they want. But we finally, I've got to get off my chest. I am so tired of talking about Aaron Rodgers being traded. It is finally over. I've got off my chest. It is done. I'm throwing the sheet of paper I'm looking at off to the wind. No more Aaron Rodgers talk. You got anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here with that whole Aaron Rodgers talk. Everyone's excited, of course, and there's a reason to be. You're getting a multiple, like I said, multiple time MVP, multiple time All Pro quarterback, probably the greatest quarterback of one of the greatest quarterbacks of his era. And he's now going to a young team. My only question now is, what does it look like on the field, right? Corey, like you said, Corey Davis is still there. That relationship was kind of sour. They shipped off Elijah Moore to Cleveland, right? When they made all the Alan Lazard moves. Corey Davis is still, I think, due. I think $10 million, $10.5 million. Alan Lazard got 11. Garrett Wilson you drafted him in the first round last year. So now the question moving forward is Brees Hall may could come back and return this season. Like you said, you have all the weapons and all the possibilities. The question is do all the weapons help Aaron Rodgers, or is Aaron Rodgers still going to pull an Aaron Rodgers like performance where he has everything lined up for him and he falls short when it matters the most? So I just don't want Jets fans to get too excited. You got Aaron Rodgers, but you're still the Jets, and he's still Aaron Rodgers.
This is true. This is true. Now, I will say that it does sound good to have Aaron Rodgers when it's talking about the regular season, but the postseason, that's a whole another ball of wax. And to throw another thing out there, Jordan Love, I believe he has like 4 or 5 interceptions so far in his career. Aaron Rodgers had 1 TD and 3 interceptions, I believe, through 3 years in Green Bay. So it isn't like their numbers are way off from each other. So potentially we could see Jordan Love do his thing and become the guy there, which would be very interesting because I can never remember a black quarterback ever starting for the Green Bay Packers and being the man. I know you can't. I know you can't.
Not at all.
Yeah, exactly. And well, talking about, being the man and a team being the man, that was the Tennessee Titans over the last few years in the AFC South. But last year, it was a grand opening and a little bit of a grand closing because it started off well and then 7 straight losses to end the season. Now they're with the 11th pick in the draft, and they had to do a little bit of retooling on a tight budget. But then came Rand Carthon. He got rid of some guys, brought in some guys, and I got to be honest, he got rid of some guys that some people did not want them to get rid of. Like, for example, I'm going to bring up my first guy here, David Long Jr. Now, he makes plays. He's always where he's supposed to be. And when he wasn't on the field, the defense surely did not look the same. Now he's going to Miami, and they did replace him, which we'll talk about with free agents. But did you expect him to leave, one? And secondly, what was your expression when you saw him walk out the door this offseason?
Unlike many people, I expected it. I kind of saw it coming. Mike Vrabel is a very demonstrative coach. He's a very straightforward coach, and when he indicts guys, it's an indictment that comes normally with some kind of action behind it. So when he said, "Hey, some of these guys aren't taking care of their bodies. Some of these guys aren't. I don't feel like they're taking it as serious. The strength and conditioning." And David Long was one of those guys that he mentioned. So I didn't expect for the Titans, and definitely not Rand Carthon, dealing with a situation where he had such a tight gap, tight cap space to try to keep a guy who you had to pay maybe somewhere within that $8 to $10 million range. I kind of felt like there were a couple of guys, and like you said, we're going to talk about a couple of those guys that wore a crimson and gold uniform that were going to come over in the offseason, and that's what happened. My expression was pretty much the same as it is now. I expected it. I expected him to go test the market, and I expected the team to pay him top dollar because, again, he is one of the better young linebackers in the league. Like you said, when he's on the field, he's where he's supposed to be. He's uber versatile when he's healthy, right? Those things are a benefit. But when he's not healthy, it's hard to replace that guy's production.
Yeah, it definitely was a guy that when he's healthy has been the key word because he has been nicked up throughout his career with the Tennessee Titans. I will say that I did expect him to get more money, but he didn't quite get the contract I thought he was going to get. But hey, it is what it is. He found greener pastures. He found a place where he can play, and God bless him playing for Miami, and we'll see what happens there. Another guy that left that some people, you kind of have a little bit of a mixed reaction. Some are like, okay, and some are like, well, cool. That'd be Austin Hooper. He left to go play for the Las Vegas Raiders, by the way, who actually sent their tight end to the New York Jets this offseason. So he's stepping right in to play for Josh McDaniel and the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, did you expect him to even come back at all? I mean, I know me, I kind of did not expect him to come back the way Chig kind of stepped up and showed that he could be the guy. But, I know I'm only one opinion. So did you think he was going to come back or did you kind of like, well, he's going to
go? It was a mixed bag for me. The fan in me wanted him back. The fan in me said, I would love to have Austin Hooper back because during near the middle to later portion of the season, he started making a lot of plays. He showed up really big in a couple of games. Some of the grabs he made were, otherworldly, like snatching it off the shoelace, the one-handed grab falling out of bounds, to keeping the foot in bounds, to keep a clutch fourth down. Those are things that you couldn't quantify through numbers. I did feel like he would have stayed. I felt like he was a guy who was a candidate to stay. But like you said, Chig Okonkwo was, I think, fourth among tight ends last year in yards per route as a rookie. There's not many guys in the league that have ever done that. Let alone a guy who got limited playing time. And every time he touched the ball, it seemed like he made a big play. It was either a 15-yard chunk play or a 30-yard play that ends up getting called back. Thank you, Taylor Lewan. Certain things. So shout out to that guy, though. That's a great guy. But, I think Chig is going to step up this year. I think he's going to get the opportunity to perform, but Austin Hooper not being there just opens up the room for other guys to step in and be that tight end number two.
Yeah, I definitely think that they'll be looking at that position in my opinion. But we do have a couple comments in the Touring the AFC South inbox from P Shark down there, Memphis 10. But he said, love David Long, but the best availability is availability. Yes, that is correct because you cannot make the club in the tub. P Shark, you said it. Now, as far as this other comment, he commented on Austin Hooper. He said he figured Hooper was gone because we need more of a blocking tight end in his position as number 2 tight end. And what's funny is, believe it or not, I think Jeff Swain might mess around and be on this team again because he's what? A blocking tight end.
Blocking tight end.
That's the only way he keeps hanging in the NFL. Blocking tight end. But I will say he does a good job at that. I'm not trying to down him, but he is a blocking tight end and he did make a few catches last year, so I will give him that. But you probably need a more dynamic number 2 tight end, in my opinion.
For sure.
He does his thing blocking things like that. But hey, you need probably a little bit more dynamic guy. That's enough time on Jeff Wayne. But we're gonna go over to the free agents. We're gonna talk about those free agents. We did mention that there was a guy brought in to replace David Long Jr. We're gonna get into that. A little bit more of that talk as well. Some other guys that got brought in as well this offseason. We're going to get to all of that and more when we come back from this commercial break on Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. Whether it's local or long distance, Milligan Logistics has you covered. Milligan Logistics was established in 2020 with over a combined 15 years of experience in trucking, hauling, and logistics, along with over 50 years collectively of project management experience. Again, whether it's near or far, Milligan Logistics has you covered with quality service, efficiency while taking pleasure in exceeding clients' expectations. Need goods moved short or long distance? Milligan Logistics has you covered. Just reach out to them at 615-354-2618. That's 615-354-2618. Or you can send them an email at milliganlogistics@gmail.com. Again, that's milliganlogistics@gmail.com. And we're back. And of course, if you didn't catch that commercial, Milligan Logistics, if you are moving this summer, I know it's a hot time for people to be moving. Holla at him. He can help you there too. But getting back to the show. All right. We're going to talk about these free agents that the Titans brought in. Now, the Titans didn't necessarily have the biggest budget to work with this offseason, but they made it happen. They did. They brought in a guy that I think could be a potential Pro Bowl player at linebacker to replace David Long. That would be Azeez Al-Shaair. 1 year, $5 million deal, $4.25 million guaranteed. Set himself up to get the bag after the season again. What did you think of this acquisition by Ran Carthon?
Oh, I loved it, and I kind of called this. If you guys check out shameless plug here, 3-point conversion, you check out the couple of players that I had listed. When the Titans named their, our new GM, Ran Carthon, I said it immediately. I said, there's a couple of guys on the 49ers roster that are free agents and are up for paydays. They're young guys that can essentially come in and immediately contribute to another team. Azeez Al-Shaair was one of those guys. And I feel like he's a guy who just didn't get a lot of love while he was with the 49ers. He made a couple of big plays, played on the field. He's smart. Fred Warner had nothing but rave reviews about the guy, about his drive and how hard of a worker he is and how much he dedicates his time to the game and the film study. This is a guy who's 25 years old and now comes into a team that needs athletic guys who play smart, play hard, and play tough. He's a Vrabel guy through and through. I think Ran Carthon came through big time with that contract structuring it the way he did, because now he sets up him possibly coming back next year on a multi-year deal where the Titans will have, I think they'll be like top 5 in cap space next year. So they'll have enough money to pay that guy if he performs well on this 1-year deal.
Yeah, definitely a good pickup to me. But, we're not going to just stop there, though. We did go to, the Titans did go to, I'm not going to say we, I'm just saying, I'm saying just as the show. I'm not saying I'm not there. I'm big number one Titans. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about, the free agent spending and splurging. That's all I'm talking about, folks.
It's okay. We accept you into the Titans fam.
Hey, man. I am impartial here. We're not going to do that. But the Titans did go to Philadelphia to pick up Mr. Andre Dillard. Now, he had been a backup for majority of his career, and I actually remember talking to him when he got drafted. He was actually a tight end coming into the NFL, and he grew to an offensive tackle, which means he has good feet. They signed him to a 3-year, $29 million deal, $13 million guaranteed to take over for Taylor Lewan at right tackle. Now, to me, I've got to give credit where credit's due. Teron Davenport was the first person I heard mention his name about getting signed, or the Titans looking at him this offseason. Now, for those that don't know who Teron Davenport is, he works for ESPN.com. He covers the Tennessee Titans, and he does it to a T. Probably one of the best reporters out there. And I got to say, he always got the shoe game and all, whatever he got it on lock. But, he definitely was the first person to float this out there. And, with that, it's almost like it came to fruition. Last year, Chika Kwanko was one of the people that he had on his podcast talking with TD. Now, and he came to the team. Now he's got Andre Dillard. He talks to him, and boom, or he doesn't talk to him. He talks him up, and he comes to the team. So with him adding on to this team and kind of trying to bolster this offensive line, what do you expect from him? A guy that really hasn't played a ton in terms of in the trenches, was a tight end before, like I mentioned, switching to play offensive tackle in the NFL, and now gets the opportunity to start on his first on the second NFL team.
Um, Former first round pick. I mean, I think you have to mention that when you talk about these guys, right? Has had some injury issues, durability issues, but I mean, it's a theme that we're going to talk about here with these free agents, young guys with good ability that just haven't had the opportunity to show what they can do in the league. The Titans are trying to get considerably younger. This team is a bit older. A lot of the guys and key pieces on this team are older and starting to get longer in the tooth. They've been around for a while. So Andre Dillard coming in now and possibly plugging in at left tackle, where you have Nicholas Petit-Frere, right at right tackle. You'll have Andre Dillard, who's I believe like 27, 28 years old. At left tackle, this offensive line now is a lot more athletic. It's a lot younger. It's a lot bigger than it was previously. So I think it's a great pickup. It's going to be time. Time will tell what he will be able to do, and hopefully he can stay healthy enough to where we can see a full body of work from him.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see what he does with his first big opportunity. Now, another guy that's looking to make a big splash, and he definitely did it with his live personality when they brought him to the signing, is Arden Key. Now, Arden Key has kind of been a guy that's been a part of rotations. He was in a rotation in Jacksonville. I don't know if you've heard, but he felt like he kind of got disrespected a little bit by Jacksonville, and he came to sign Tennessee. He's going to get the opportunity to actually play a lot more and potentially start on this team. So with that more opportunity, I mean, what do you expect from an Arden Key, to be honest? I mean, I've seen him as a rotation guy, but I've never seen him as a full-time starter before.
Again, another young guy with a lot of upside. You're going to get your top, pass rusher back this year if you're the Titans and Harold Landry the third. So he's going to come back. Arden Key is a flash first step guy. When you see him play, and you look at what the Jaguars had last year, you had Caleb Von Chason, you had Josh Allen, and then you add Arden Key in there, who's a guy that they will move around the defensive front. He will rush from the middle, from the edge. They will bring him on stunts and loops, things of that nature. The scary thing about Arden Key is he brings a level of pass rush ability that you did not have last year. A guy who can rush with power, he can also rush with speed. But like I said, those stunts and loops now create mismatches, right? You now have Jeffrey Simmons and Danico Autry, as well as Harold Landry coming back, and then you plug in an Arden Key and just imagine the stunts and the loops, and now you're a guard and you have to try to block this guy who's quicker and faster than you shooting up the middle, and you also have to worry about Jeffrey Simmons or Danico Autry coming in on the other side. So it now becomes a more of a NASCAR, package kind of team, and the defensive fronts that this defensive unit can present to teams is going to be pretty scary. I think Arden Key is a guy who he's motivated, he's young, and now again he's another guy who's going to get his opportunity to, like you said, possibly be a starter and make the most of this.
Now, yeah, I'm definitely interested to see just the energy he brings because that's infectious. But a guy I didn't not want to mention is Daniel Brunskill. It definitely brings versatility to the offensive line for the Titans. Just wanted to throw him out there because he is a key piece in the free agency of the Tennessee Titans as well. Got him for a nice bargain also. But two players we do have to address though, and it wouldn't be this offseason if we didn't. That would be Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill. The other names have been mentioned in the news lately. Now, of course, there was rumors out there about the Eagles making a run at Derrick Henry, and of course, AJ Brown was kind of, hey, let's go get him, let's do this, let's do that. But Rand Carthen kind of talked about that today. He said there's he's received no calls about Derrick Henry, so we kind of put that a little bit to bed. But realistically, do you think he leaves the Titans before the season starts, or is this just a lot of talk?
I think it's a lot of talk and a lot of fluff. It's kind of, I think it's coincidental that as soon as Elon Musk, takes away a lot of blue checks on Twitter, all of these rumors start up. And I was telling people this, these things are going to happen when you're dealing with social media like that, and there's no way to verify these accounts. Anybody can come out and say, "Hey, I heard this through the grapevine, and you guys should be on the lookout for this." Definitely with a name like Derrick Henry. I will say this: Ryan Tannehill is on the chopping block. He's on the showroom floor. They are fielding calls for him. And that was to be expected. Now, Derrick Henry, I just don't see it happening. He's still the best running back in the NFL by far. When he has an offensive line in front of him, even to last year where it seemed like he maybe lost a step, he was still top three in rushing. Like that's something to be said. This is a guy who missed half of last year and all the way up until like I think week 10 or week 11, he was still top three in rushing. Like this is a guy who finished in the top 10 in rushing and didn't play half of the season. I don't think that's a guy that you trade away. Definitely with some of the rumors that are going with the Titans. If you know, with them looking up, wink, wink, nudge, nudge for a signal caller. So you want to have somebody that can stabilize the backfield, and Derrick Henry is one of the best, if not the best, at doing that.
All right. Well, I hear you there. Now, when you said Ryan Tannehill, I did get this quote. Again, thank you to Run Davenport for the coverage. So I did catch this quote from some of the information he put out there. Basically, Rand Carthon addressed it. Just to let you know, this is what Rand Carthon said, by the way. Rand Carthon said, just to let you know, Ryan and I had a conversation back in February. Ryan knows where he stands with our organization. Now, with that statement, it can be read a couple different ways, in my opinion. It can be read as, we're keeping them abreast of any conversations that we're having with teams, or you can read it as, you're not going anywhere, really. People are calling us, but we're not calling them. How would you kind of, perceive what exactly Rand said?
Um, just hearing Rand Carthon and seeing how he's moved since he was hired, he's a pretty straightforward guy. He does have his, of course, like every GM, he does have his signal calls that he uses. Um, but Derrick, this is the second time that he's put to rest Derrick Henry rumors, right? He said, we're not trading Derrick Henry. He's not on the chopping block. Then he comes back and says, he's not going anywhere again. Like you said, early today, they haven't received any calls for Derrick Henry. They're probably not accepting any calls for Derrick Henry either. He's a pretty straightforward guy, but I think in this case, Ryan Tannehill's cap hit is $36 million. Rand Carthon wants to make some moves. He's not done making moves. No team is done making moves until probably right before the season starts. And even then, they're still trying to make moves and make additions. I think Ryan Tannehill could be on the chopping block. It is what it is, right? He's a quarterback who can still play. There's teams that need a quarterback, and there's teams that he could add value to that the Titans could look to make a deal with. Rand Carthon has reset this roster. He understands what he has and what he's working with, and I just don't think this offense. I think this offense has reached its ceiling with Ryan Tannehill under center, and I think Rand Carthon knows that. So a move on draft day or after draft day, maybe post June 1st, because they have not made the post June 1st designation yet, could happen.
I hear you there, but I just have a tough time thinking that someone will take on that kind of cap hit without the Titans having to take on either money one or the team that signs them to an extension. And those are two things I kind of like, I don't know. I'm kind of iffy on a team accepting him and taking an extension, or the Titans paying him to go elsewhere.
Well,
it's just kind of iffy for me.
The good thing about it is his contract has 2 voidable years. So if a team does take him on, he falls off the books next year with those 2 voidable years. So it would almost be like dare I say, a Russell Westbrook type of deal where it's, you're taking on the guy for 1 year, then he falls off your books and you reset, and it's you get a free year of a guy on your roster.
Okay, yeah, pretty solid comparison there. But we're gonna kind of get out of talking about the free agency and the all season there with the Titans in terms of players that are currently on the roster. And we're gonna talk about players that could potentially be on the roster. The Titans are at number 11 in the draft this year. Now they've been rumored to trade up for quarterback. They might, who knows, they might trade up for Bluegrass Bortles. No, I don't know if you know who Bluegrass Bortles
Oh
is.
my
That is
God.
that's Will
No,
Levis.
I know
That's
who
what
that
that's
is.
Emery Hunt with the nickname of the
Jeez.
decade with
Not
Bluegrass
bluegrass
Bortles.
Bortles. That's crazy.
Yes, Emery Hunt with the greatest nickname this year. But of course they've been talked about an O lineman, a defensive guy or defensive back. I mean, a wide receiver has been thrown out there too. In your opinion, what do you think is the best thing they can do with this pick?
I think it depends on where the pieces fall with, like with the guy we just talked about earlier. But if it's Ryan Tannehill, if you're sticking with him for another season, then I think wide receiver is your best bet. The value right now for wide receiver is probably the highest in the first round, just because there's so many guys that have first round grades. Now, the benefit is this is a deep wide receiver class. That is to be expected. This is a deep DB class, the same way as a deep offensive lineman class. I just think with the Titans, you want to get one of those top three guys, right? Which in many cases right now is Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, and JSN, Jackson Smith Njigba. To me, the guy who fits the Titans and fits the mentality of the Titans and the way they want to play is Jackson Smith Njigba. He's a guy who's played in the slot. He has a lot of those things. He reminds you a lot of AJ Brown, right? AJ Brown, if you know, when he came out of Ole Miss, he was a slot guy. He didn't play outside a lot. And people were saying, well, we don't know what he is as an outside receiver. We don't know what his value is as an outside receiver. And as we can see, AJ Green has done nothing but be amazing since he's hit the professional ranks. Jackson Smith Njigba has a lot of that same makeup. He's a guy who's an excellent route runner, great hands, great body control. Watching him at the combine, I mean, he gets in and out of his breaks with speed and precision. He's going to leave guys in the dust, and even on tape, it always seems to be like he's always in space by himself. And when he catches the ball, he also can make things happen after the catch. So that's a guy I think if you're the Titans right now, you're looking at him. If you trade up, who knows? Maybe a Paris Johnson, maybe a DeJuan Jones. If you trade down, maybe a Peter Skoronski. So I think tackling a wide receiver, if I had to rank it, wide receiver would be the number one option.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I spoke with a few others on that one. I think mainly Blaine Bishop, and he was like, I don't know about trading up for or picking a wide receiver at number 11, but hey, you never know. You might get a steal, you might get something you didn't expect out of that pick, both good and bad potentially. But but of course, my last question I do have for you is, defensively, Blaine Bishop pointed out cornerback. They definitely need help there, but where are some other positions of need besides cornerback and wide receiver that you look at the Titans need to address?
Um, Offensive line for sure. I'd love to pick up a Brunskill that you talked about earlier. Of course, like we said, Dillard, NPF, and those guys. But offensive line, you can never have too many guys that can play offensive lineman. Center is still an issue for me. Um, I like Brewer. I like Aaron Brewer. I think he's a good player. I just don't think he fits what the Titans want. He got beat a lot last year against guys who just overpowered him. I think you want to get a bigger body in there. Ben Jones was gone. He's been an anchor for this team since he joined the team, and I think you need to find someone to replace him. So offensive linebacker is another position I think of need. Um, it's always kind of funny. You see linebackers that, and linebackers not been as highly valued. People talk about the running back position not being as highly valued in the NFL, but linebacker hasn't been as highly valued as some may think. But you got guys like Trenton Smith out of Clemson who are gaining momentum. They're gaining traction and steam. He fits a lot of what the Titans want to do. He's a guy who can cover in open space. He can rush the passer. He's great in run and against the run game. I think he fits what the Titans want to do, and he's also a guy that they can grab in the second round. With the way that this draft is falling, cornerback, like you mentioned, is another position I think that has a lot of depth to it. You can grab a lot of guys. You can possibly get a starter as late as the fourth round. So those three positions, I think, offensive line, linebacker, and corner, I think are three positions that the Titans should definitely look at and definitely look to address as post first round.
Okay. All right. All right. And going to another comment from Pete Shark, I can see the Titans taking on some money since it's too late to sign anybody of significance with the money. That's a thought. That's a thought. But we have reached the end of the show talking about the Titans, the offseason, free agency, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, the draft. But like any show of mine, we've got to end it with the game. We've got 5 questions, 2 answers, 1 choice. Sure. Are you ready?
For sure.
All right. First question. Offensively, do you expect them to be a little bit more balanced this year, or do you expect a run-heavy offense again in Tennessee?
I expect more balance. I definitely expect more balance. Right. Mike Vrabel doesn't make comments like I want to feel one of the fastest teams in the NFL without wanting to pass the ball a little bit more. The moves that they've made a more concerted effort to grab pass catchers. I think they've leaned more to being faster. Chigo Okonkwo is a 4.4 guy. Traylon Burks is a 4.5 guy. They've got speed. They just brought in Chris Moore, who's a 4.4 guy. So they're making a concerted effort. I think there's going to be a lot more balance this year.
Okay. All right. I was going to mention that's one free agent pickup I didn't mention. He was actually I believe he was either the lead receiver or the second lead receiver for the Texans last year.
Yeah, second leading receiver. He was the second leading receiver behind, I think, Brandon Cooks.
Gotcha. And then, of course, going back to the tour in the AFC South inbox, P. Shark was trying to make sure we were talking about Ryan Tannehill with taking on money and not Derrick Henry, which we expected that. But we knew what you were talking about. But as far as Aziz Al-Shaair or David Long, who has the better numbers this year?
Ooh. I just think out of necessity, right? I think Al-Shaair is probably going to have the more the better numbers on paper, bigger impact. I think is going to be David Long.
Okay, all right. Kind of the political answer. Both teams win, right? But I'm just kidding. But as far as Harold Landry, you mentioned he's coming back this year. Over or under 10 sacks when he comes back this season?
Oh man, can I take the middle ground here and say
you already did it one time, man. You already did it one time. You gotta go over.
Okay, I'm gonna go over.
Just hold on. I'm just going to give everybody a little bit of background. He did tear his ACL before the season started, so he will be more than likely fully healthy when the season starts. But go ahead, Courtland.
And those are full tear too, so it's a full repair. Those come back stronger, I think. So I'll go with over here. I'll take the confident leap here. I'll say over. The guy was on. I think he had 12. I think he ended up recording 12 before the injury, which got him this big contract. And then, of course, last year he misses a year with a tragic injury. But this is a guy who, at Boston College, messed his knee up, blew his knee out before, came back and played very well and became a second-round draft pick. I have confidence in Harold Landry. I think the Titans knew what they were doing when they paid him. I'll take the over here. I'll probably go 12.5 to 13 because he's going to have running mates. And those running mates, if I was a pass rusher, I think I'd have a good year coming off of an injury if I had Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry, and Arden Key lining up behind him.
Yeah, you make a good point. Okay, now Titans offensive line. Like I mentioned, they're adding Andre Dillard. They are adding Brunskill. Potentially could add another piece in the draft. Do you see a top 10 line this year in the Titans' future?
No, I don't see a top 10 line, but I do see a middle of the pack. I don't think they're going to be bottom of the league like they were this year. They're going to make a considerable improvement, and this is where the Titans have a choice to make. We've seen this happen with teams in the past. The Cincinnati Bengals were one. A lot of people felt like I was one that felt like they should have took a tackle, namely Penei Sewell, in the draft that they took Jamar Chase, and then they ended up taking Jamar Chase and still making the Super Bowl. So it goes to show that offensive weapons can vastly improve your offensive line because you're able to get guys open and the ball comes out a lot quicker. The quarterback doesn't have to hold the ball as much. So I think this is where the Titans can see a middle of the pack improvement. We've seen offensive lines that are not top five offensive lines make deep runs into the playoffs.
Okay. All right. You make a good point. Now, last but certainly not least, Arden Key. Now, we mentioned him previously with his energy. And we also mentioned that he hasn't been a full-time starter at any point really in his career for an entire season. Over or under 7 sacks this year, provided he starts this year.
I'm gonna say under. I feel like, and I don't feel like that's a bad thing. When I say under, I don't feel like that's a bad thing per se. I think his impact is far more than just sacks. Arden Key is a great pressure guy. He's a guy who's going to play the run. He's not a Yannick Ngakoue, right, where he's a pass rush specialist and that's all he does. He plays well against the run. He's aggressive with setting the edge. He does a lot of good things. So I'm going to say under, and the reason I'm going to say under is because of the factors of who his teammates are and the style of defense that the Titans play. There's going to be a lot of rushing from the middle linebackers. Jeffrey Simmons is going to get his 8 to 10 sacks. Of course, like I said, Harold Landry is probably going to get his 10 to 13. Danico Autry is probably going to get somewhere between 7 and 8. There's going to be plenty of food to pass around, but somebody's going to have to get scraps, and I think Arden Key would be the odd man out.
Oh, man. Gotta get the scraps, the breadcrumbs. Okay. All right. Now, we have reached the end of the question and answer game. Of course, 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. We have reached the end of this episode. Thank you again for coming on. It's the 3-point conversions, Courtlandt Griffin. For those that don't know, he has previewed every single team for this year's draft on the 3-point conversions website. I just want to turn over everything to you. Let everyone know where they can find you on social media, what all you're working on. You know, I know you worked on all these teams. I know you're probably going to talk about the draft afterwards too, more than likely. So go ahead. The floor is yours. Tell everyone where they can find you and what all you're working on.
For sure. You can find me in the 3-point conversion, like Mike previously mentioned. Like I said, there's NFL draft profile going on for each team. So if your favorite team is probably mentioned, is most likely mentioned. There's some still coming. Definitely go check those out. You can find me on Instagram at DC Griffy, on Twitter at DC Griffy. That's THE, the letter C, Griffy, Griffy. I'm all over, Instagram and Twitter, kind of throwing things out there, my own takes, and definitely with the NBA playoffs, you're going to want to follow me. I'm throwing a lot of hot takes out there. I will be at the draft this week, so I do get a chance to be up close and personal with these guys, these same guys that I've been talking about for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I went to the combine, so I got to be up close with them, personal with them there. So it's going to be fun to see what happens with these guys in their NFL futures. But I appreciate it, Mike, man. It's always a pleasure being on the tour in the AFC South. I remember when Mike didn't have the dreads and he was doing this. So, so this is amazing, man. And keep it going, bro.
Hey, thanks for coming on again. And thank you, everyone, for listening. You can catch Touring the AFC South on YouTube if you like to watch the show. Just look up Touring the AFC South. The shows will be right there. Now, if you like to listen, you're kind of on the move a little bit, you can actually listen to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. We're on there too, and on iHeartRadio. And when you do listen to these shows, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. On Apple Podcasts, you can subscribe. You can actually rate the show. You can actually write a review for the show. I'd greatly appreciate it if you would do so. 5 stars are welcomed and encouraged. And of course, a review is encouraged as well. And also on Spotify, there is a rating system as well. Right below the picture, there's a star there. Go ahead, click on that star. 5 stars are preferred. I'm not going to say like Bomani Jones and what he says, but I'm not going to call anybody a hater for 4. But but I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you for watching Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton, and my guest, Courtlandt Griffin. We are out.